You don't need to be a pro wrestler to enjoy this match, but because I am, I can explain to you in basic terms why this is such a great match. And it starts with one word: emotion. Initially, we see two lockups, and Stephanie overpowers Brie both times. As Stephanie goes for the third lockup, Brie arm drags her out of the hold, and Stephanie goes from confident to surprised. Meanwhile, Brie is still confident. As Brie goes behind her, Stephanie is still getting frustrated, and Brie Bella is actually out wrestling Stephanie McMahon. As a result of Stephanie being out wrestled, she's going to resort to striking Brie. So you're going to look very closely at Stephanie's face. She's going to go from annoyed back to confident again. Stephanie began at a time when women's wrestling wasn't really women wrestling. It was more about having a feeling of a cat fight. Hair pulling, bra and panties matches, mud fights, the stuff that would entertain the weirdo men that don't touch grass. Whoever put this match together is a genius, because Stephanie McMahon doesn't look like she necessarily works out all that much, and I don't think she's got 20 years of in-ring experience. So being able to put this match together with a limited amount of wrestling ability is really what makes this match work and makes it feel so special. And with this hair whip, that's what I would refer to as wrestling like a girl or wrestling like a woman. It's one of the more basic women moves in the 90s, 2000s. It was a lot of that hair pulling and then the Stephanie slap. So Stephanie may be the heel in the match, but we're still following the story through her emotion. Stephanie's moveset is kind of sort of paying homage to her history and also the women's history, and it also demonstrates how far we're confident and mocking Brie. Stephanie's emotion is not really shock, but anger. And then desperation. So her emotions made her make the mistake of not being careful and getting into the yes lock. And here, Brie's just as confident as she was in the beginning. And here we're going to get into the cutoff. I would also do this too. I like to do the suicide dive, but it doesn't actually work. It's safer than doing an actual suicide dive unless you're Cal Creed. Sorry, buddy. One thing about Stephanie's career is she's always been able to make it work for her.
I'm not daddy's little girl anymore.
Stephanie may be the heel in the match, but we understand how she's feeling, and we can follow the story of the match just by following the expressions on her face. She doesn't need to do any insane bumps. She doesn't need to jump from corner to corner to make her a better performer. But when Stephanie does do moves, her moves are telling a story. In Stephanie's career, her matches are entertaining because of the stuff that makes wrestling fun. Run-ins, weapons, and cage matches. Here, Stephanie isn't happy, mad, sad. She has a more complex level of emotion. She's frustrated. She's desperate. Once Stephanie begins to feel confident again, she seems more satisfied with her work. With the DDT, I believe Stephanie has won a match with the DDT, so this is a believable false finish in that sense, and it also goes back to doing a wrestling move. Stephanie's looking more annoyed and doubtful. And then she goes to maybe a little bit of surprise or doubting herself. And as she goes for the hold the second time, here we get into the deeper emotions of like disgust and contempt. And Stephanie's facials have always been great. And that's honestly what's made Stephanie McMahon's matches so special from the beginning to now, is how great her facials have been. Because she's not just acting, she's more so reacting and showing the story through her face. As we're beginning to build to the comeback, we're fighting out of the hold with the kicks. As Stephanie gives Brie the spacing, she's getting ready to charge. And you can tell on her face that she's disgusted and embarrassed. As Brie jumps on Stephanie McMahon right in the center of the ring, the two are essentially fighting for control of the match. We're starting to see a shift in who's in control. Stephanie rolls Brie off and charges Brie into the corner without thinking. So she's letting her emotions get the best of her again. So what happens when we let the emotions get the best of us? We make mistakes. And that's one of the stories that Stephanie is telling. Stephanie is desperate just to get back in control as she crawls to the center of the ring. And here's a callback to Daniel Bryan's yes kicks, but also what Stephanie was doing earlier in the match to Brie. And Brie's feeling confident again. So Brie was in peril, and now Brie is confident as Brie gives Stephanie essentially two of what she got earlier. So the heel is going to get what they were giving and then some, which is always a good storytelling method. Before, Stephanie was the aggressor, and now she's essentially been getting her ass kicked for about 2 minutes. And she has an ugly bump off the dropkick because she's not a wrestler. She's a sports entertainer. Stephanie is desperate to get away, and as heels do, they cower away, and babyfaces do, they move forwards. And when you're on top of someone like that, you don't want to just throw punches to your siblings. It doesn't look good. And with Brie in Brie mode, gross. She is in control of the situation and she's being dominant. The visual of standing over someone is it's a very primitive feeling, and is visually telling the story of the match. As Brie gets the yes lock in, Triple H is going to pull the referee out. And notice how Nikki Bella has been essentially expressionless since she comes out. And as we watch the finish of this match, we can see Nikki's face is entirely emotionless. It's very interesting, and she stayed that way since she came in, and she'll be leaving that way. And I believe that's going to create some intrigue, especially with the finish of the match. So I don't think Stephanie expected her to do this, and I think that's why she has the surprise on her face, and before that she even had the fear. So when we compare the two emotions, happy and surprise, it would make a mixture of delight. And the same with Stephanie. Stephanie had surprise and fear, so she was in awe of Brie. And with the pedigree, that'll be the finish. Since Brie was knocked unconscious, she was unable to react to what her sister did. And this is going to be a cliffhanger moment. So it'll make the fans want to see, well, what happens this time? What happens this time? It'll make the fans curious for more. And there's Triple H. Some lizard thing. With the commentary, we can kind of fill in the lines of doubt. But now we're left asking why. Stephanie leaves the same way that she came in, confident and proud. No emotional reaction from Nikki, but now she's the physical aggressor. And Triple H is of course content with himself and his wife. And again, they're standing over Brie Bella. And that's the primitive, I win. If you enjoy this level of depth and learning about pro wrestling, there is a book called Can I Become a Pro Wrestler? Below is a copy of the sheet for you to review this match and even pair the sheet up with the next video. Undertaker vs. Randy Orton tells the story of how to get over as a wrestler, not as a superstar. The established veteran has an entire arsenal of signature moves, and a young Randy Orton has yet to even discover his RKO.
Freaking high, man. And Orton is gonna house show dive here. Probably the last time he ever did a hashtag dive.